Good morning. I'm Peter Hurst, the President and CEO of the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council, and I want to welcome you to the third part of our four-part series on federal procurement. Today, we are going to focus on crafting competitive proposals, and our speaker is an expert in this area, William Randolph. William is the founder and CEO of Think Acquisition LLC. And he has been, the leader for the first two seminars we've had, and he's also going to have one other webinar after we have this one today. Just by way of context, the Greater New England Council operates the Massachusetts MBDA Business Center, which, as the name suggests, is funded by the Minority Business Development Agency, which is the only federal agency that's focused on minority business development. We also operate the COVID-19 project, which is funded by the MBDA, and the Federal Procurement Supplement. And this webinar series is being jointly sponsored by the Massachusetts MBDA's Business Center, as well as the Federal Procurement Supplement. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our expert, Mr. William Randolph. William, the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. We're going to get started here. Again, it is a joy to be with you for the third version of our government contracting webinar series. This third version, we're going to be focusing on proposal writing, crafting competitive proposals. All right, let's get going. By way of an introduction, again, my name is William Randolph. I'm a retired senior procurement executive and former contracting officer. Worked in the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Navy, United States Navy, United States Marine Corps. Had various assignments. I retired in 2016. Did some consulting work around the DC metro area for a few years, and then started my own company in 2019. And today I'm here with you, so my pleasure to be with you. First, I want to say just a quick thank you to the G&E MSDC. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. The mission and the responsibility that they have to support is very, very important work, and I'm glad to be a part of it, be invited to be a part of it for the Greater New England area. All right, let's get going. As a reminder, folks, let's identify the target. The opportunity. We do this for every seminar. Let's lay the groundwork. The opportunity, $692 billion worth of spend last year. Those were the contract spend. So not grants, not agreements, not transfer payments. Okay, all contracted efforts, $692 billion. It's been over $600 million for the last 8 years. So when we talk about demand, the demand is there. There's no need for demand creation. Demand is already there. It's about demand capture. And in the G&E MSDC states, that spend was a little over $46 billion just in those 6 states alone. They collectively, $446 billion of spend. Let's dive in and show you what I'm talking about. From smallest to largest, a little over 500 million in Vermont, 1.2 billion in Rhode Island, 1.7 billion in New Hampshire, 2.7 billion in Maine, and then it starts getting good, really good. Massachusetts, $17.9 billion worth of contract spend last fiscal year. And then the $22 billion gorilla, Connecticut, $22 billion worth of spend in Connecticut. So the demand is there. The opportunity is there. It's just, are you ready for it? Are you ready for it? Here are the awarding agencies. The awarding agencies, as you would likely assume, living in the Greater New England area. The Department of the Navy has the largest spend, over $25 billion a year. Okay. But Air Force, Army, DLA, US Mint, Veterans Affairs, Missile Defense, Defense Health Agency. Okay, significant spend in the area. So again, this is not about demand creation. You don't have to create it. It's there. It's there. All right, let's dive in. The government contracting life cycle, these are broad strokes, 6 broad phases of the contracting life cycle in federal government, everything from identifying needs all the way to closing out contracts. That's the life cycle. And in these broad categories, we're going to be focused on 3 today. Section 3, which is the contractor bidding. How do you go about the process of bidding work? Please know, I believe there is a secret strategy for proposal success. It isn't so much a secret from a standpoint of eventually over time, you'll learn it. You'll learn it. But that trial and error, the longevity that it takes, the time period that it takes to learn it over time, okay, that trial and error period is long. So we're going to crack the vault for you. We're going to crack the vault, at least give you some of the secret strategies for proposal success. In my experiences, so 26 years of federal government experience on the government side, having the pen, being responsible, being a contracting officer with the big pen, being directors of contracts that led teams with big pens, and then in a couple of instances, being program managers, but responsible, having to partner with folks with the big pen. I've had lots of roles around proposal engagement. I am today an instructor. I am a creator. I build proposals right now. I'm a government contractor, just like you all aspire to be or are. Okay. I'm a contributor. I've worked on larger projects. I've been an evaluator of proposals inside of government. I've been an adjudicator when you had to make a decision between 1 or 2, laying out the pros and cons. I've been the decision maker, a source selection official, reviewing proposals. I've been a defender when our detractors come out of the woodwork and say, what's wrong? You did something wrong. I've had to defend the decision around proposals. I've been a reviewer. I've been a responder. Okay. I've been an unsuccessful offerer as well, submitting something and didn't win. But I also have been an awardee. So those are all the facets when you think about proposal engagement. These are all the roles that I've played over a 30-year career in and out of government. I've had lots of roles. And here's what I'll tell you. We have to shift our focus from writing a winning proposal to writing a competitive proposal. There's a big difference. When you think about winning, okay, that's not in your control. The winning, the selecting, because there's multiple participants that are in that. So it's not totally in your control. You can only control your proposal. But if your proposal is one of 4, then you have only control over a small amount of the activity. But to write a competitive proposal, oh, you have lots of authority, ability, control over writing a competitive proposal. That's almost 100% in your control, writing a competitive proposal. So that's what I want to focus on today. There are some common challenges with responding to requests for proposals, RFPs. Time management is huge. It feels like the government rarely gives gives one enough time. The complexity of the requirements. The government is at times are asking for things that maybe didn't even exist yesterday or the day before, or that they're putting them together in such a fashion where it adds a degree of complexity. Your level of known and unknown competition. Who's competing? Who's in the marketplace? It's a common challenge companies are not aware of, haven't taken the time to understand the competitive forces that are at play in their own marketplaces. Who's the lead dog? Who are the also-rans? Who's the up-and-comers? Who's the ones that's fallen by the wayside? You have to know your competitive landscape, your competitive landscape. Technical knowledge of the space, that can be a limiting factor in success and competitiveness. Knowing what's going on, what's the latest and greatest in your area? Who's doing what? Who has the latest creation, the latest innovation? Who's investing money? Who's cutting back? Actual past performance is huge. The government seeks to reduce risk in the acquisition life cycle. One of the ways they do that is to attempt to identify folk that have actually had past performance. Being able to adhere to the compliance guidelines is significant too. Effectively communicating the technical information. Sometimes our proposals are heavy in technical jargon, concepts. How do we effectively communicate technical information? Well, another challenge is balancing detail and brevity. While we want to give all the details as much as possible, we're often constrained by page counts. How do you balance that? Ensuring accuracy, that you're actually telling the story as it needs to be told. Many times to lay people. Okay? They may not be experts. They may have the requirement. They may be the keeper of the requirement, but they may not be an expert in the space. Maintaining consistency in messaging, including the tone, that's a challenge, especially when in larger proposals, when they're broken up or written by multiple people. How do you keep the tone the same, that it sounds like it's being articulated from one voice, one tone? And then most importantly is demonstrating value. How can you actually unlock value and then articulate it in a proposal in written fashion, if written? Okay. So here's what I believe. I believe there are level 1 and level 2 insights. Level 1 and level 2 insights. Today, for the sake of time, we're going to be focused on the level 1s, but at the end, we're going to give you an opportunity. We'll figure out a way. We'll share a way for you to get insights into the level 2s. But those level 2s are significant. Okay. The analogy that I often use is level 1 insights are like playing checkers. Level 2 insights are playing chess. You got to get the moves right. You have to understand the basics in level 1 for your level 1 insights. But your level 2s, they have some strategy, tactics inside of them. So together, there are 17 points that I've created over time that we teach, we advise on, we coach. 17 points. We're going to tackle the first 7 today. First 7, and then we'll have an opportunity for you to connect with the others. So, but focus. We're going to focus on the first 7 today. Then we're going to do a little Q&A after it's all over. All right. Let's talk about level 1, our level 1 proposal enhancements. First one of the best ways to write highly competitive proposals is to have a robust go, no go pursuit framework to even decide if you're going to spend time and energy writing to it. One of the ways to increase your competitiveness is stop writing to proposals or RFPs where you don't have a competitive advantage. I've always believed that your pursuits, those contracts, those RFPs that you seek to pursue and that you're going to put time and energy into, they should fight their way in to your pursuit framework, into your system, into being able to write against them. They should claw their way in instead of assuming and then vetting them out. I've seen many companies, they assume anything that's in their space is in, and then they spend the time vetting things out as they take them on the journey. I oppose to you that that should be reversed. That proposals, RFPs should prove their way into your system. They have to fight to get in terms of their will, in terms of their capability to be effectively delivered, effectively solution, effectively responded to, have an effective differentiator, something that differentiates you in the space, not just what you can do, but what you can win, what you can compete for. So having a robust go, no-go framework will increase your competitiveness simply by doing the work up front to assume that they're out and let them fight their way in, so that anything that comes in, you know that you're going to be working on it. You know you got a high degree of confidence you can be competitive. So go, no-go system, having a framework in place. Number two, compliance is really important. Keeping the rules, responding to the framework, responding to the directions. Compliance, that's what compliance in government contracting means. Instead of trying to inspect it at the end of the process, is you write all the stuff and then you got to think about page counts, margins, font sizes. Think about building a compliance system from the beginning. Okay. That, again, no word gets in without being compliant. So all the words are written in a certain fashion. All the frameworks are added. All the pages have the right margins from the beginning, so that nothing comes in without it being compliant. And that doesn't absolve us from the polishing and the quality assurance on the back end, but we don't have to try to police it in at the end. It should be simply that. It should be just a polish. If we build a compliance system that allows only things that are compliant into the document, into the system, into the writing of the response. So build a compliance system. Everybody knows what is compliant. You have a framework. You have an articulated framework of what should be written, what should be in, and you follow that system from the beginning instead of trying to inspect it in on the back end. Number three, clearly identify your differentiator. This should be the first sign. If one doesn't have a differentiator, maybe that's not something you should be pursuing. Because if you just can do the work, then there's lots of people that can just do the work. There are very few requirements in government where there's only one company. There's only one company. Please know, based on my military background and my work in DOD, Department of the Navy, if they can compete refueling of nuclear submarines and nuclear powered carriers, if that can be competed, then everything else can be competed. Everything less than that, there are folk out there that can do it. But what is your differentiator? What sets you apart? That should be one of the first things to help you let the proposal fight its way in, the RFP fighting its way in, that it has a differentiator. You have the capability to deliver extraordinary value, because that's what it's going to take to be competitive. And that's what it's going to take to win. So clearly identifying what is your differentiator. Lots of people can just do the work. What are the ones that have a differentiator? Those are the ones that are competitive, and those are the ones that tend to, the winners tend to come from those that are competitive. And what sets your competitiveness is your differentiator, not just what you can do. Number 4, understandable pictures. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, pictures are worth 1,000 words, and I believe that to be true, but understandable pictures in proposals are worth 1,000 words. I've seen some very intricate pictures in my time, diagrams and exhibits. And I'll tell you that if they don't contribute, then they add to the confusion. There's a phrase that says, the confused mind says no. The confused mind says no. And I believe that there are times when pictures can add to the confusion, which may add to the no. So understandable pictures, making sure that if you're adding diagrams and exhibits, making sure they're actually contributing to clarity, not contributing to confusion. So understandable pictures are worth 1,000 words. Number 5, focus, folks, on digestibility. Digestibility. Many times our proposals are attempting to explain complex supplies and services, products or activity. And one of the things one of the ways it can fall off the rail is that the proposal doesn't break down the activity or the production or the delivery or the capability into digestible chunks. Okay. Think about proposal response, who your customer is for the proposal writing process. It's the evaluator. The evaluator is your customer. That person is going to consume your product, which is your proposal. Therefore, it behooves us to create our proposals in a way that they can be read, understood, and digested to aid in our competitiveness. If the evaluator can't understand it, there's no way you get from proposal to win. So you have to focus on digestibility as a framework, taking complex things and breaking them down into edible chunks, having a story arc or journey that you're taking your evaluator on. Focus on digestibility. Number 6, I'm a big believer in branding, especially in a crowded environment that is government contracting. And government contracting is a small portion of the larger commercial and industry environment. Branding is important. One of the ways you brand your solution is giving it a name, giving it a title. The company X solution, the company X strategy, the company X game plan. And you use that branding, you start using that branding that includes, in my opinion, includes your company name. So when people start talking about it, guess what? They're going to be using the brand that has your name in it. Did you read that Company X proposal? That Company X solution? That Company X strategy? The Company X way ahead? That's pretty cool. No, I didn't read that. What does it say? Oh, the Company X way ahead. That's different. They brought something different. Company X, you saw Company X? Yeah, they actually call it the Company X way. Brand the solution. Far different from support services. Yes, you read the support services proposal. Which one? Oh, I can't remember which one it was. Product G. Did you read the Product G proposal? Yeah, well, all of them are Product G. Well, what's different about, well, I can't remember. Did you read the Company X proposal? The Company X solution, the Company X way? Ooh, Company X, yes, I remember that. You start building that connective tissue between your company and your ideas and your solutions. And you use branding to help you do that. Brand your solutions. And number seven is a writing strategy. For those of you that have had the opportunity to write a proposal, many times when there is most of the time, proposals are bound by time and bound by, you have a certain amount of time to submit it, and you have a certain amount of pages you can submit. Let's call it 10 pages. And most of the time, like 9.5 times out of 10, now I've experienced it in other places, is that when that 10 pages are written, everybody writes up, we might break that up and say, you write 3 pages, you write 3 pages, and you write 4 pages. And everybody comes back with a little bit more. So when you need 10 pages, you actually have 10 or you have to have 11 or 12 pages, and we start cutting out the things we think we don't need. We end up with 10% more than what we need. We need 11, we have 11 pages, and we do surgery on the proposal to cut it back to 10. Now it's a normal process, but I think it's sub-optimized. The reason I say it's sub-optimized is because during that process, we are not using our brains to think about what we should be adding. We're actually using our brains, we're actually using our system in place to take out the things we don't need. Imagine if you had 9 pages and we had to add. You wouldn't be adding fluff. You wouldn't be adding unnecessary things to get to 10. You'd be adding more meat and potatoes into the response. So if you artificially say, let's do 8 pages, or let's write 9 pages, and when you find yourself needing more content, then you would read the content and be adding additional value. So the whole proposal value rises because you're adding to get to the 10 pages. You're adding, you wouldn't be adding fluff at that time. It's like, let's explain this more. Let's give more detail here. Let's give more examples here to get to 10 pages. When you have 11 pages and you have to get to 10, what are you doing? You're cutting out the things that shouldn't have been in there in the first place. It's a different way of looking at the exercise. Do you want 9 pages and be demanding to add content, to add meat and potatoes? Or do you want to have 11 pages and you're cutting out the garnish, the things we didn't really need anyway? So think about it. So when you're writing proposals, I propose a strategy of 10% less, starting with 10% less, not 10% more. 10% less forces you to add meat and potatoes. 10% more demands that you cut the garnish out, all the things that aren't valuable anyway. And I believe for a competitive proposal, you want to let the system force you to add more content instead of cutting out filler. 10% less, not 10% more as a writing strategy. Okay. The capability, folks, to write a competitive proposal is based on, its foundation is in your technical capability to be able to articulate what you can do well, and what you have a competitive differentiator for. That expression, that written expression, is simply your need to communicate. That capability has to be turned into a communication event. That's the work. That's the work. Understanding your capability, being able to articulate a value proposition that not only adds value, but has a differentiator to separate you from others in your space. And then being able to communicate that. Because if it's up here, that's great. But the technical evaluators that are consuming your content can't read your mind. That capability has to be delivered, has to be unlocked and communicated in such a fashion where others can adjudicate it. That's a communication channel. So ultimately, proposal writing is about communication, effective communication. How well can you effectively communicate your value? Right. So next steps. Here's what I would encourage you to do. One, always reach out to your G&E MSDC representatives. Connect. You likely have large businesses, small businesses that are winning work in your space. That means that they are effectively communicating their solutions. Reach out to them. Maybe someone has an opportunity for mentorship. Maybe there's a collaboration opportunity. You could sit at the foot of someone doing it well and learn from them. Existing large businesses and small businesses in your space are winning. Make sure you know them and learn from them. There are some opportunities. And who knows, there may be some business opportunities to work together, but get the lessons. If someone's doing this well, someone's being highly competitive. So connect with your colleagues and learn this activity. You should know them, and they should know you. That's the easy button. So the next steps, here's a couple. First, this is the third installment of our webinar series. We got one more coming on May 8th. We've got engaging with the government and utilization and importance of capability statements. So that's going to be May 8th. May 8th. Second, the center sponsors one-on-one consulting opportunities. If you'd like to learn, talk about those level two insights, maybe this is an opportunity to do it. Reach out, virtual meetings. Again, the center is sponsoring them. So all you have to do is reach out to the center, let them know that you want to have 1 hour one-on-one consulting with me. Consulting opportunities are available. We can talk about this, level twos, or anything else you'd like to talk about in your government contracting journey. That's number 2. And then number 3, don't forget that the center supports multiple certifications, small business and minority-based certifications. So if you are in that environment and have the characteristics to support the certifications, I encourage you to do so. And also, there are matchmaking activities sponsored by the center as well. You should be engaging in those. That's the first place, in my opinion, you should be looking and seeking collaborative opportunities and collaborative engagements, finding partners and colleagues and joint ventures. This is your community, so this would be the first place you should be looking. Someone's winning. Someone's winning. Okay. And with that, the rest of the time of our hour, we're going to just open the mic up, open the floor up for some questions, some Q&A questions. And please remember, if you'd like to reach out, please do. Your level 2 insights, please, if you want to reach out, you can connect with me personally on LinkedIn if you'd like, but for any of the services that go through the center, including the one-on-ones and the follow-on activity after this webinar, please reach out to your G&E MSDC representatives. They'll set you up. Okay. And with that, we've got about 20 minutes, I think, of good Q&A time. So
thank you,
it's
William.
open. My pleasure.
So Q&A, we would love if you could hit the raise hand button and ask your question to William directly. If you're not in a space where you're able to use your microphone, go ahead and put your question in the Q&A box, but please try to avoid the chat box so that we're able to make sure that nothing gets missed.
Okay, colleagues, the time is yours.
Perhaps you were so thorough that there's no questions.
Perhaps, could be. But I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. If you've got a question, a burning question about proposals, they have seen a few of them in my years. I've seen a few hundred of them. What works well, what doesn't.
I know I saw a hand up earlier, but perhaps you answered it.
Okay.
Oh,
So
okay, Mark Robinson. Can you unmute yourself?
Hello, this is Mark Robinson, and thank you very much for the information. It's very helpful. Could you talk about the difference between a solicited bid and an unsolicited bid?
Certainly. So the big difference between the two is one is relationship based and the other one is a formality. The solicited bid is really the government asking the world who can do what we're looking for. Okay, this is what we're looking for. We've decided, we've done the market research, we've gotten smart, and this is what we're looking for to deliver, and we're looking. So the solicited bid is really the government asking who can do this and for what price. Okay. The unsolicited is actually in the reverse. Just by its very title, unsolicited means that the government didn't ask for it. And for it to pass as an unsolicited proposal, The government is required not to have a solicitation on the street, haven't asked for it already. So the unsolicited is often relationship based, that a company firm has done enough homework, built enough relationship to understand the wants, needs, hopes, dreams, aspirations of the agency, and believe they have something, while the government hasn't asked for it yet, they have something that the government could find value in. It's relationship based, it's connection based. Okay, it would be disingenuous to think or to suggest that one could just throw unsolicited requirements like grass seed everywhere, and that it happens to deliver, it happens to connect and germinate. I say that would be unrealistic. It's based on relationships. You have to know what the agency is doing, what their mission is, what they could be needing, but just haven't gotten around to asking for it yet. So the big difference between the two is that one is driven by the government's known needs, and the other is received by the government based on industry's beliefs and expectations of what they might need. Hope that helps, Mr. Robinson.
Okay, we have two questions that came in through the Q&A box. So the first one is, if the proposal does have a page limit, can an appendix be included?
Oftentimes the requirements will say, whether appendices are counted or not counted. Okay, so that whether exhibits, appendices, or additional information, pictures, graphs, exhibits, appendices are counted. So I would follow the rules of the RFP. So the bottom answer, the basic answer is it depends. If the government states in their RFP that appendices and exhibits are not counted, okay, then load them up. But if they say all of it's counted, then you have to consider that. And oftentimes I've seen where there's a page count on the proposal and there's also a page count on the exhibits, because you could have unconstrained, you could have a 10-page proposal with 100 pages of exhibits and appendices, and that would defeat the purpose of the activity. So the short answer and the long answer is it depends. So, but follow whatever the guidance is for the government.
Okay, and then there's a question about more information about the point system in the decision process. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so the point system is simply this. There should be some criteria that you use to allow the opportunity to fight its way in. Again, most organizations that I've seen do this, they assume that it's in, and then over time they figure like, oh, we really don't have the capability or the definitive strategy or differentiator to effectively do this work. And when you put it in and then it fights its way out, you still have to spend time, energy, resources, blood, sweat, and tears on the journey to decide a no. So you start with yes, and then you pick your energy, and it ultimately gets to a no. Okay, or it stays a yes, but you're not effective, you're not competitive, you don't have a differentiator. So that will ultimately end up being a no, because you're just waiting for the government to tell you no. I just believe when you look at it the other way, when you think about it as a point system, is one, can we do the work? Yes. But that's just like only one of 5 things that you can do the work. 2, do you have the resources available? Do you have the team available? Do you have a differentiator in the space? Okay. Do you have something that separates you from others? Do you have past performance that supports the recent and relevant past performance that supports the ask of the government? And maybe even a 5th thing of, do you have the bandwidth to actually respond effectively? Because if you have all these things, but you goof on the proposal response because you don't have you don't have the bandwidth to deliver it effectively, then all the other things don't matter. All things won't matter if you can't communicate it effectively. So instead of putting it in and then determining the 5 points, if you will, on the way out, I say, hey, let's fight it out at the beginning before we waste any amount of time. Okay, you can do that in 1 hour, I believe. You can take an opportunity and look at it, probably even less, but let's just say 1 hour. It's worth taking 1 hour to ask yourself the questions than to get it in and spend multiple hours ultimately to find out that, oh no, we really didn't have a shot, a competitive shot at winning the work. So that's how I would think about the point system of decision process. Let it fight its way in instead of fighting its way out.
Okay, let's go with a raised hand question. Kadani Fresky. Can you unmute?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So the point system question was my own. I'm under the impression that when the government's trying to make a decision, it's based on a point system, right? And you would know more than I would, so correct me if I'm wrong. But like, for instance, if you're a disabled vet, you get so many points. If you're an MBE, you get so many points, right? And I'm just trying to understand that point system and that process.
Oh yeah, so that's a urban legend.
Okay.
That is a points-based process. It's a solutions-based process. It's a competitive advantage-based process. It's a past performance. And actually the government will tell you exactly what they're looking for in terms of technical capability, management capability, past performance, and price, and their priority. And the point system, as you call it, those are just the differentiators after the fact. And most of the time, those are used in the beginning to say, oh, let's just go and assess all of the veterans. And then they have an assessment of all the veterans, but they say up front, we're going to do this as a service disabled veteran-owned small business contract. So there's no points given for it. There's no points. It's just part of the strategy. They will build a strategy that will consider socioeconomics, but no one socioeconomic category has more points than the other. They choose the socioeconomic strategy up front, and then they execute based on the strategy. They don't change the strategy by a point system on the end.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, so one attendee is asking, which federal contracts did you go after and win? Is there a specific field that you specialize in?
Yes, I'm in the training and development space. So I had the opportunity to build a business that fed off my passion for education and training. So my business is government contracts, acquisition, contracts, and leadership. Those are my 4 areas, the 4 areas that I do training in. So I'm in a training and development space. So I have contracts for, I train contracting officers and contract specialists. I train senior contracts folks in leadership development. I have other government clients that are not acquisition people that I do core training, contracting officer representative training with, or workforce. A big one now is workforce development. So it's those are the types of contracts that I pursue. And we have one contract for acquisition support services. So a team looking for additional hands to help them out. So those are the types of contracts that I pursue, but I pursue them. I chose that vertical based on 3 things: my past experiences individually, my interest, and that vertical is big enough in government, you know, the pie sliver of the 692 billion is large enough that it is worth pursuing, that it wasn't something that was only, you know, they only spent $100,000 a year on. They spend millions, tens of millions of dollars worth of in training every year. So that vertical was big enough for another entrant.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, well, I just want to remind you, we have our final federal procurement webinar event on May 5th. And that is focused on engagement with government and the importance of capability statements. So we hope to see you then. William's presentation will be shared with all attendees, so you'll receive that later today. And we were recording this event. So if you need to go back and review anything, this will be up on our YouTube page. So again, William, I want to thank you for your time. And last call for questions before we end a few minutes early. Okay, well, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you on May 8th.
All right. Be well, folks. Bye.